Yes, Doctor, tell us. Arrived at here.
Thank you very much. Well, we started off the day with the opening ceremony. So the opening ceremony consisted of having interventions on the three main Pan-African organizations that are part of what we call the Clean Dev Africa. So that consisted of the Economic Commission for Africa, UN Economic Commission for Africa. We also had intervention from the African Development Bank, and we also have intervention from the African Union Commission. So that was a way of framing a lot of the issues in terms of what Africa is already doing vis-a-vis agriculture, and how some of these actions that we are witnessing in agriculture across the continent is also helping to manage a lot of the risks that are related to climate change. I think all the statements that we had, all the participants really honed in on the fact that, you know, Africa is not basically just standing idly by and not doing anything. There's a lot of initiatives in Africa. Some of them have had endorsement at the very highest political level. You all know about the Maputo Declaration, which is urging African countries to at least pledge 10% of their GDP to agriculture. And that's been achieved by many African countries. Recently in Malabo as well, during the AU summit, there was another pledge which is also working favorably towards agricultural production. There's a lot of good research that has also been done. African countries in general do not tend to invest a lot in research. But you know, we're beginning to turn that corner slightly. There's a lot of partnerships between African universities and universities in the north or universities in other parts of the south. So I think by and large the participants wanted to really say the challenges are there, the continent is vulnerable, our ecosystems are also vulnerable. There's a lot of environmental degradation that we're seeing across Africa. Yet the paradox is that we have all the resources that we need to fully turn the corner. The resources in water, resources in terms of energy, water, we have a number of aquifers, several rivers that are owned or shared by different countries. Energy, in terms of energy potential, we have renewable energy in abundant sources. We have solar, we have geothermal, we have wind. You know, so all of those are sources that are fundamentally important in that agricultural chain in terms of how you put energy, water and agriculture, because all of these are very important ingredients. If you want to boost the agricultural sector, you need water. If you want to boost the agricultural sector again, you know, you need energy. So these are part of the same chain, if you like, and all of these points were made. This was followed by a high-level delegation. We invited a number of ministers here today. Some of them, unfortunately, were not able to come, but we had at least 5 ministers. It was a very lively, animated discussion. We had the minister, who was the host minister from Morocco, and she actually basically spoke and gave us a very sort of comprehensive perspective of many of the problems that are facing Africa. She highlighted on something that we don't hear very often, which is this problem of immigration, you know, migration to some extent, but immigration as well. Migration in the sense that climate change, because of many of the difficulties that we're seeing, many of the biophysical impacts, is affecting modes of production like agriculture, and therefore people who dependent on agriculture as their main source of income are now feeling, you know, compelled to leave their, what I would say, environments, you know, and move to other places. Morocco has this problem, and it's a problem that they have been managing. But it does say that we do have this case of environmental refugee, which is to a large extent being fueled by the degradation of the resources that we so heavily depend on. There's no other continent that depends on natural resources to the extent that we do, you know. So this was one point, new insight, I would say, that she highlighted. But she also talked about what they're doing in Morocco in terms of arriving at some kind of energy sufficiency. She talked about their move towards solar energy, towards wind, and also some of the new trajectories that they're trying to chart, including green economy, and how they're trying to see how they could basically harness, harvest, and utilize their natural resources towards a move that will take them to the green economy. So there were a lot of good points that were made. We had other ministers from Senegal that talked about their own particular experiences in terms of some of the problems that they're facing. Talked about issues related to coastal erosion, talked about issues related to land degradation. But all of these things are collectively affecting agriculture. The minister from Guinea-Bissau also talked about some of the problems that they're having in terms of saline intrusion, and what that is doing to a small country like Guinea-Bissau. So that again also brought many of the problems that they're facing. But in general, I would say the interventions talked about the problem in its entirety, but they were also able to reveal the fact that the extent of the agricultural problem is not only climate change. And sometimes we do have this tendency to bring it all together, and we blame climate change for the many of these issues we're seeing. But I think what was important, and I think the moderator did ask this question, we need to find ways of delineating the lines so that we can say some of these problems are structural problems. They've been there before. Problems relating to poor soil fertility have been there. They were there already. These are old problems, but to some extent, some of these have been accentuated by climate change. But in working towards a solution, we need to really ensure that we are clear enough in our minds, in our plans, in our strategies, in our mechanisms, to basically say, how do we deal with the old, and how, with the knowledge of the old, could we also address some of the new issues that we're facing? So I would say, from Benin to Senegal to Morocco to Guinea-Bissau, I have a good sense that the problem has been turned on its head. And right now, as I'm speaking to you, we are adopting some kind of a diverse style mode, which we haven't tried before, but we have a series of panelists that are talking about a number of the issues that we put on the table. We had a very rich content that would enable people to understand the problem in its entirety. And I think that's what they're doing. They're basically bringing in some new perspectives about research, how important that is, about enabling indigenous knowledge, something that we tend to forget about making sure that the research that we're doing is not just a scientific research, that it's research that is catered to the needs of the poor, to the needs of the vulnerable, and that in that sort of chain of how research can be applied, we're bringing in scientific research, but we're also intersecting that scientific research with indigenous knowledge, which is fast disappearing. So I think we've done justice to the topic. We are learning from some of the experiences we're seeing today. It's gone a bit longer than we would have wanted. We're hoping that we'll have a cultural evening where we would have a lunch of the Clean Dev Special Fund, which, as you know, is a fund that countries can draw on. They don't have any intermediary agency or persons. They can have direct access. It's managed by the African Development Bank, which is also part of the Clean Dev Africa. And these funds, not very ambitious, but not very large in terms of amounts of money that can be given to countries, but at least can support African countries through the entry point of information, data, and access to data, could use these funds to really help in terms of solving many of the climate and development problems.
Thank you very much.